Welcome to another episode of Proactive Parenting, a show where I offer you judgment-free advice on how to raise value-driven children in a way that's right for your family using the most current scientific research. I'm your host, Dr. Deanna Marie Mason. I'm a certified pediatric nurse practitioner, published author, and expert in child development. I'm also the mom of two fabulous teenage kids, so I know firsthand how much pressure and misinformation is out there. That's why I'm here. So grab a cup of tea and settle in, and let's let our guard down a bit, because this is a safe space to ask questions and get real, honest answers about how to raise kids in a way that works for you. So in today's episode, I want to talk about overindulgence. And overindulgence, simply defined, is having too much, too frequently, and with too little effort. It's something that I think is very pervasive in our culture and also in how we parent in developed countries. I don't want to ladle it with judgment at all, because it's a hard thing to get away from. I find overindulgence to be happening in families, both with children and with parents themselves. I don't think anybody's immune. I think it's because everything in society now is set for that. We don't even have to go to the store to buy anything. We just make a couple clicks on our phone and it arrives at our door perhaps the same day. Or we want to eat something special. We don't have to go through the effort of shopping and making it, or even getting in the car and going to a restaurant to eat it. We just grab our phone again with a few clicks, and in a few minutes it's delivered to our door. So overindulgence, in a sense, is reflective of our society and how we live currently. However, when we look at overindulgence in terms of child development, we need to recognize what that can mean to how our children view and perceive the world. Little ones, as they grow, go through something we call developmental milestones, things that show that they're meeting different criteria on time or not, so we can intervene. And one of the things with that moves them from one developmental level to the next in a step up is something called a developmental struggle. They have to push through learning how to do something in order to get to the next level. And that innate struggle that happens is what creates the change. For example, a child doesn't just go from lying on their back to walking. They have to go through a bunch of intermediary steps, of which there are a lot of failures as they do that. As they try to sit up, they topple backwards. As they try to control the weight of their head, as they try to scooch across the floor to crawling, they have to learn to coordinate their arms and legs together. When they finally want to stand, they have to learn how to balance everything. And then when they get to walking, they have to learn to shift that balance from one side to the other so they can lift one leg and step forward. My point in all this is that when you watch this happen in your child, you see that struggle. You see that persistence and practice and repetition with each attempt learning something new. And each of those attempts and that learning that happens eventually pushes them forward to that next level. So how does this relate to overindulgence? Well, in overindulgence, it can happen in lots of ways. We can overindulge children in physical items like clothing and food and toys. We can overindulge them in attention. And I don't want to start a controversy here about you can never give your child too much attention. You're right, you can never give your child too much attention, but the type of attention that you give them does need to be metered. There are positives and negatives that need to be balanced there. So I don't want to start a fight on that. But my point is, sometimes we can overindulge our children with the wrong type of attention. We can overindulge our children in making things too easy for them, where we go in and rescue too often, rather than allowing them to struggle and figure things out on their own. My point in linking those developmental struggles with overindulgence is that there's a balance for everything in life for things to be healthy. And when we shift that balance, particularly to the side of too much, we can create some unintentional consequences. And that's really at the heart of this conversation of overindulgence today, is how do we go ahead and be a parent and create those magical memories for our children and provide for them many times the things that we didn't have ourselves as children without going too far, and with awareness of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and with the outcome we're hoping to achieve, so that we avoid any of those potential negatives that could occur. Simply put, when we are too overindulgent as parents, and it's too frequent and it's without limit, we are actually taking pleasure away from our children. It robs them of the opportunity to feel the specialness of something, to feel extraordinary, or the satisfaction in doing something on their own with success. And over time, if we persist in providing an overindulgent family life, nothing becomes exceptional or special to our children. They begin to take everything for granted. And the only thing that overindulged children can focus on is getting more. And I think that is where the heart of balance comes in, so that our child can enjoy the specialness, they can enjoy the beauty, the difference between every day and when it's a moment of overindulgence. It's important to remember that overindulgence is, of course, a part of normal life. And it's usually a wonderful experience. We overindulge when we step outside of our norms for a special event, a special day, a special treat. And maybe an example of this could be when we splurge on some beautiful clothing for an event, a special event, or we have a special meal to celebrate an award or an accomplishment or a birthday, or we go on a much desired vacation to reconnect after a really stressful year or difficult time. Overindulgences are very normal, and they should be sprinkled in life to bring us that joy, that light that we need. But the important thing to remember about examples of overindulgence is that they're supposed to be occasional and related to important events. They're used to mark the specialness of an occasion that doesn't normally happen. And it's that overindulgence in that moment that creates those feelings of excitement and elation, because the action that you're doing is out of the ordinary. As parents, I know how easy it is to get caught up in the feelings of excitement and elation and anticipation that occur when we watch our child's face change when they receive that extra. They go to that place, they eat that food. It's like a burst of pure joy and bliss that we have satisfied this tremendous happiness, and we've given this tremendous happiness to our child, and it almost becomes addictive to us. It makes us feel like a superstar. And unfortunately, sometimes this giddiness in watching our child enjoy something can lead some of us to try to get that reaction more frequently out of our child. And so while going out for ice cream is a wonderful indulgence that our children enjoy because it's special, it loses its specialness if we do it day after day after day. And sadly, humans, we become tolerant of things really quickly. If one level of living becomes the new norm, it's no longer special. And the only way to get that new reaction of specialness is to raise the bar, to make it even bigger or greater. And then again, if that's repeated too often, that new level of overindulgence becomes commonplace. It becomes normal again. and it loses its specialness. And then it's going to take even more to get that same response. So for our kiddos, if we are giving them treats and special things on a really regular basis, it no longer feels like overindulgence to them. It just feels like normal. And what we're going to create is an unquenchable desire for more that will increase and increase because they want to feel that specialness. They want to feel that spark. And if what we were doing doesn't do that anymore, they're going to push for more. And simply put, that means that our child is never really content or satisfied. The temporary enjoyment of what we gave them is going to fade quickly, and they will again begin searching for more. What does this look like? In reality, I see this most often when I see a child begging for a toy, and they beg and they beg, and the mother or father, wanting to make their child happy, says, okay, you can get it. And you see the child throw the toy in the cart or take it to the counter to pay, and at that moment, they're looking at all the other things around them for something else. They're actually not interested in the toy anymore. They were more interested in getting the toy than enjoying the toy. And that toy, once it's taken out of the box and it's looked at and it's manipulated a little bit, gets thrown in the pile with the rest. And the child is focused on the next thing. And sadly, what this creates for a child is a permanent sense of dissatisfaction. And it emerged with a family with all of the best intentions. Parents think that they're doing the best for their child because the child appears happy. But that happiness is so short-lived and quickly takes the child back to a place of want and desire. The short-term gain is canceled out by the increasing desire for more. In my practice, I've seen this with everything from toys to clothing, parental attention, which I'll get to in a minute, to food. I once had a family whose child would scream for something at the grocery store. They wanted strawberries, for example. And they wouldn't leave with just a small package of strawberries. They wanted the largest pack of strawberries. And the mother, thinking that's healthy, that's fine, we'll buy the strawberries, buys the strawberries, brings them home. And when she puts the strawberries in the fridge and the child asks for them, the child wants a plate of strawberries. She doesn't want to start with a few strawberries. She wants to start with a plate. And of that plate of strawberries, she bites off the very tip of each strawberry and leaves the rest and throws it away. And what that means is the child didn't want strawberries to eat. She wanted strawberries to have strawberries. And she took a nibble out of each one to show that she had the strawberries so no one else could have them. But she didn't consume the strawberries because it would make her happy. It was a way of just showing that she could get what she wanted. And that seems very simplistic. But when we apply that to parental time, for example, a child who starts to become accustomed to a lot of assistance with homework to the point where parents are sitting down doing the homework side by side with the child, and the child will not do the homework unless the parent is physically sitting next to them, walking them through the activities. It can become very disruptive for a family when overindulgence of parental time starts to influence other members. Because if a parent is sitting side by side with one child and there's more siblings in the family, that means the other children cannot have their needs met because it's all being dominated by one child's needs. Or worse, if that parent is trying to run between multiple children with the same overindulgence, that can be very stressful on the parent and keeping them from doing things that are important, maybe preparing meals, cleaning, or just doing self-care. And it's limiting that child's ability to manage themselves and take care of themselves because they're focused on getting more rather than on the task at hand. Honestly, for me, one of the greatest challenges of overindulgence I experienced firsthand when my children were younger, was the birthday parties. Oh my gosh. How extensive, expensive, time-consuming, over the top, and gift-laden they became during the course of my children. I have Gen Zs. They really blew my mind knowing how bad overindulgence was to a child's development, and just seeing that they put out a kiddie pool which the child had the expectation that it would be filled with gifts, and the parties were so extravagant that it was impossible to take in all the sensory information that was going on. And the children were just zombies at them. They just could not manage all the input, and so they just became numb to it. But they felt that they had to have it, or more importantly, the parents felt that they had to provide it with all of the good intention of making their child happy. And in reality, when you watch the kids walk around in that zombie-like state, some kids were crying, some kids became very aggressive as a way to manage their strong feelings and their anxiety in those situations. And most kids just tuned out. They didn't know what to do with it all. And that for me was a really aha moment as a parent, that what they say about overindulgence is really true, because I got to see it from every age, from the very littlest kids of 3 and 4 years old all the way up through, the tween years. And it never changed. It was continuously the same. The activities the kids didn't want to do, they just wanted to know what was next. And that I guess is the most common thing I hear out of overindulged children's mouths is, what's next? They're never focused on the activity that they're doing. They're not present in the moment. They're always worrying about what's next. And even at mealtime, they're not focused on what's in front of them. They're wondering what's for dessert, what's for snack, what's coming. And that future focus, always looking in the future and not being really present in the moment, is what can be devastating to our little ones, because it robs them of what real happiness is. When I'm working with families and overindulgence comes up as something that's occurring in the family that's keeping the family unit from running smoothly, a lot of times I have to start by asking parents how they're doing with their own overindulgence. And that is a tricky place to be, because as adults we have the right to do whatever we like. And I never open that conversation from a point of judgment, but from a point of awareness. Oftentimes the reality is we may not have a really good control on our own desires and needs, and we may be searching always for something coming to provide us joy rather than enjoying what's happening or enjoying what we have right now. And when that happens to us as parents, that bleeds over into our life at home with our children. And so there's a little bit of self-assessment that needs to take place in overindulgence to make sure that we as parents also know how to limit ourselves. And people question me, what does it mean to have enough, to limit myself? Well, I always think about it this way. This is an example out of another author, a psychologist, Jean Ilsley Clark, and she relates it to being like driving on a road. That when you're driving on a 2-lane highway, there's 1 lane for each direction, and there is kind of a shoulder on each side of the road, a buffer, a gravel area. And you can think about the road as being, driving in the center is where you have enough. You have what you need. You have the appropriate clothing, housing, food, socialization, all those good things. And right next to you is a shoulder that has overindulgence, that when you pass there is when you get little sparks of joy that come at special times and that are really enjoyable, and you mark an occasion or event or something spectacular with something extra. And then there's the other side, which is where you're lacking something. There's a deficit. And in life, we normally drive in those center two lanes. We normally have enough. We have everything we need. We're healthy. We're happy. And we should only occasionally bounce on to the road or the side of the road with overindulgence, so that it kind of wakes us up. It sparks us. Wow, look at this, is different than normal. I need to, pay attention to this moment. Or on the other side of deficit or not having enough, when we're on that side, it's like, whoa, I need to wake up. I need to change. Something's not working here. So either shoulder, whether it's too much or too little, should be an occasional occurrence. And it should make us aware of what's happening, for good or for bad. And so if we use that analogy, as parents, we have to kind of take a reflective look at our own life and say, am I staying mostly on the paved road, or am I driving with one set of wheels, always in overindulgence? Or sadly, am I having some problems and I'm in the deficit side? But our goal is to drive in just enough. Because in the end, when we're in that too little, it makes us appreciate the having what we need. And as we all know, if we have too much of something good, it spoils it. Too much ice cream gives us a bellyache. So when we're in the enough lane in the center of the road for most of the time, it makes us become aware of when we have extra and when we have too little. So I always start with parents asking, let's take a look at ourselves first. Where are we at? Are we driving on the road, or are we driving on the shoulder? And until we get that straight with ourselves, we cannot fix what's happening with our kids and overindulgence. Because as I talked about before in proactive parenting, the family is a system. Everybody interacts with everybody else. And if we can't control our own overindulgence, there's no way we can do it in our children. So in that first reflection of looking at ourselves and our own overindulgence, we have to figure out why we're doing it. What need are we trying to satisfy in ourselves? And once we have that need corrected, then it's much easier for us to regulate our behavior and then carry that forward with our children. Luckily, the approach to constant overindulgence for ourselves or for our children, or to correct it, is exactly the same. The only difference is that if we've been overindulging ourselves or a child has been overindulged, there's going to be some resistance in the beginning. We're going to feel that friction. But with time, it will lessen. And if we're not overindulging ourselves, or our child has never been overindulged, it's very easy for them just to continue on this pathway. So what are some strategies? What are some real-life parenting strategies that we can use to avoid continuous overindulgence or correct it if we're in the habit of it already? I think the number one thing that we have to focus on is not judging our parenting based on how our child responds to us. You need to give your child what you think they need. You're the adult. You know what's best. You have the knowledge. You have the lived experience. You know what a balanced meal looks like. You know what appropriate clothing is. You know how many toys they need and what type of toys. You know how much free time they need. You know how much support they need with their homework. If they push, ask for more, cry, have a tantrum, that means we need to help them work through those feelings, but it doesn't mean that we need to give in. So don't judge how you're doing as a parent based on how your child's responding to you, because that can become very manipulative, and kids are really smart. They can learn very quickly which buttons to push and how to get you to respond. When you see them pushing back, The goal is to help them learn why they're pushing back and guide them towards healthier behaviors. Your job is not to give in to what they're demanding as a means to get their behavior under control. Try to make adjustments towards less food, less activities, less direct attention at all moments when you see that your child is not recognizing or valuing what they have, or they're not focusing on what they have, or all they're looking for is more, or they're only looking for what's missing. Sometimes children have everything in front of them, and the only thing they can focus on is what's missing. Working from that area, it means that they're always going to be dissatisfied. So we need to help them change their worldview towards abundance rather than scarcity, so that they can enjoy what they have, regardless whether they have everything or not, but they can enjoy what they have and be content with that. We need to teach our children the value of what is present in their life and explain to them in age-appropriate language that they have everything they need. Maybe at bath time, sometimes you put in bubbles for an extra special bath. But most days during the week, you just need to take a bath, get clean, put on your jammies, and go to bed. And on weekends, we have time for a bubble bath, a special long bath with some more toys. So on the days that there's no bubbles, we can just simply explain, today's just a bath day. We need to get our bath done so we can get to bed so you're ready and rested for school tomorrow. Simple, age-appropriate language with nothing extra. And hearing that message over and over again is what teaches our children that, yep, I got enough. I'm happy. This is good. A big one, and this goes back to what I was talking about with the birthday parties, is avoid competitive or comparative parenting, or allowing your child to compare your parenting to other people's parents. As much as social media and advertising would have you believe, parenting is not a competitive sport. You were given your child. You know that child better than anyone else. And no one can tell you what that child needs better than you. So other parents' suggestions, advertising, it doesn't mean anything. And sometimes our kids can try to push our buttons by saying, well, Johnny's mom or Susie's mom or dad. Yeah, well, maybe Susie's mom or dad has time to coach soccer league and make brownies for everybody and specialized cookies with their names on it and jersey number in individualized bags with team color ribbons. Okay, Susie's mom or dad has time for that, but that doesn't mean that I love you any less. It's just that's how they spend their time. I'm going to spend my time helping you memorize your spelling words. We just need to refocus when our kids try to pull us into that, to show them that you're not getting that, but you don't need that. You're getting what I think you need, and what I'm giving you is enough, and it's right, and it's good, and you need to value that. So it's a very organic process that you're going to have to work out, each of your children with you in order to find the right language that connects with them. But our job as parents is to give a little pushback on that when other parents are doing just exceptional things, and yay for them, that's what they do to take them to their happy place. But that does not mean that you have to do it if it does not fit with your family profile. It's okay. It's not a competitive sport. One of my favorite things to explain differences between families to kids without being judgmental is to say, different families, different rules. You don't have to give an explanation. Also, if it's something that's very emotional or difficult for your child to understand, sometimes just saying, different families, different rules. You're in this family, these are our rules. We love you, we care for you, you have everything you need, you're doing great, let's move on. And that simple, practical explanation, you'd be surprised, will work with a 2-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 15-year-old. Because there's an internal logic to it, and there's no argument that can debase it. So I've used that quite a few times in my parenting, and I know that I've heard my parents that I've worked with use it, and maybe that's something you want to put in your toolbox also. Practicing self-restraint in your own life to set an example is also a wonderful way to avoid overindulgence, because it's hard for our children to learn skills that they can't see in the real world. But if you are practicing just occasional overindulgence and really enjoy it, your child will get to see how excited but infrequent overabundance is. And that's going to make them look forward to it, and when it does happen, really enjoy it. And then be okay going back to normal life until it happens again. Teaching our kids how to appreciate and enjoy everyday life is a really important task of parenthood. And sometimes scarcity, and sometimes there's overindulgence, but most of the time there's just simply enough. And letting our children get sidetracked by desire or greed only takes happiness away from their childhood. Teaching them the importance of valuing what they have and letting them experience the great pleasure of occasional overindulgence will set them up for a truly sweet memory of childhood. It's that simple. We don't need to work so hard at wowing our kids. They are going to do just fine with having what we provide for them and allowing those occasional sparks of overindulgence to really sweeten up the wonderful life they already have. Well, that is our episode on overindulgence. If you have any questions you'd like answered, don't hesitate to send me an email. I read every one you send me. You can drop me a line at deanna@deannaremason.com. You can also find out more about this topic and other parenting issues on my website at proactiveparenting.com. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching for my name, Deanna Marie Mason, to find more information and a community of parents just like you. And finally, if you'd like to purchase one of my books or my online courses, they too are available on the website. Thanks so much for listening today, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please tell a friend so she or he is also in on how to be a proactive parent. That's all for me for today. I'm Dr. Deanna Marie Mason. I'm going to leave you here. Please take care and be well, and I'll see you soon.